Welcome to Moxie Bets, presented by Caesar Sportsbook. I'm your host, Katie Mox. Coming up on today's show, the Super Wild Card Weekend is just a few days away. We'll give you some early leans for those games. Plus, it's the first UFC event of 2023. Our Danny Brasco is here to get you set with picks for that. And you know it. You've got my Mox Locks coming your way for the NBA slate tonight. First things first, let's welcome in formerly Mr. Monday, but he's here on a Wednesday, Danny Brasco. Danny, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm good any day of the week. I'm on call here from Moxie Bets, so I'm excited to talk playoff football with you, little UFC action. What else could you ask for? Let's do it.
So we'll kick things off here with Capper's Corner. We got Danny Brasco here for Super Wild Card Weekend. Interesting. Here's something I found, a stat, Danny, that I want to talk to you about. So according to the Elias Sports Bureau, this year's wild card round will feature all rematches from the regular season. It's only the fifth time since 1970, since the merger, that every game in the opening round of the playoffs is a rematch of the regular season. So speaking of those rematches, let's start with my favorite, the Seahawks versus the 49ers. Niners are laying 10. Well, it's anywhere from 9.5 to 10, depending on where you get it. It's been kind of up and down. Over under 43. It's a second playoff meeting between these two teams. The Seahawks, of course, won 23-17 at home in the 2013 NFC Championship game. I think we all remember. Now I love how I say we all remember and I forget his name. Richard Sherman with the, that's when you line me up with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that whole moment. And that's the last time that they were in an NFC Championship game together. The Niners, of course, swept the Seahawks in the regular season for the first time since 2011. This is a double-digit dog, right? Or a double-digit game. It's at 10, 9.5, depending on where you get it. Double-digit underdogs, 1-10, straight up, 3-8 against the spread in the postseason. All of those things point to the 49ers here. What do you think?
So, wow, you brought me back with that Crabtree reference too. Wow, what a time that was to be alive for 49ers fans. You're back in the playoffs. I know you're amped up. I feel like the sharp side is going to be Seahawks with the points, right? That's where you're going to see a lot of pros go. And I feel like the line will likely stick right where it is. The Niners should be handicapped as more than a touchdown favorite over these Seahawks, who struggled against the Rams in the last week of the season, right? But the Seahawks don't feel like they deserve to be more than 10-point dogs either, right? 10.5, a touchdown and a field goal. I feel like the line is set kind of pretty well. And I'm not brave enough to take the Seahawks with the points, but I also don't want to lay that big of a spread with the Niners. I'll say this in terms of the game style itself. The Seahawks blitz the third least in the NFL. And Brock Purdy and the Niners, if you're going to play a heavy zone on them, I just don't think that's going to work against guys like Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, like gadget type of players. The soft zone is going to be tough to keep them contained. So Brock Purdy's also numbers go way up against zone, and he can use his legs if they're going to sit back on him and not send the pressure, right? Then he can go pick up a first down with the wheels if he needs to. So I just feel like it sets up well for the Niners here. No, I don't want to lay the big spread, but I'll give you this last final stat or trend. You know the old proverb, it's so hard to beat a team 3 times in the same season. Not necessarily true. Teams that meet up for a third time after winning the first 2 games in the regular season and then meet in the playoffs, 12-7 straight up, 9-1 against the spread. So no like angle against the team beating them the third time. They even cover at a 500 rate. So all those signs point to me towards Niners in some way, shape, or form, maybe a teaser. I'm going to get them in some way and figure out a way I want to bet the 49ers in this game.
Yeah, look, I'm obviously a huge 49ers fan. I don't think the Seahawks have a prayer of winning this game. Pete Carroll himself came out and said it's unfortunate that they have to play the 49ers because there's no one hotter than them right now, and they are healthy. But like you said, 10, 9.5, it's a pretty big spread. I do also anticipate that sharps are going to come down on those points. This is the last game, that they played a few weeks ago. I believe that the Seahawks would have covered this spread. I will say Seahawks 3-6 in their last 9 playoff games since and including the Super Bowl loss to the Patriots. Niners have the number 1 scoring defense for the first time since 1984. That's the last time that they won the Super Bowl. what I see right now, as far as like where the money's come in and where bettors are really leaning, it's this under. It's the under 43, or right now I just looked on Caesars, it's actually dropped down to 42 and a half. That's getting like 90% of the money. Again, still really early. But if you think about how good this 49ers defense is, how well they've played at home, and the fact that they've been really able to neutralize Geno Smith, I feel like the under is probably the way that I would lean on this. Although I do get a little worried because this offense under Brock Purdy, specifically George Kittle, that Iowa to Iowa connection has been phenomenal. And we're going to see, Christian McCaffrey, what he can do in the playoffs. And then you got people like, well, we got everybody. You got Debo, you got Ayuk, you got Juszczyk, you got everybody. So I worry about the 49ers being able to put up a lot of points here, and the Seahawks really not being able to do anything. But I would probably lean on this under. What do you think of the total?
Yeah, I totally agree where your head's at. That's why I would lean more towards Seahawks team total under. If I'm going to play a side to not score or struggle on offense,
Yes.
I agree with you. The
Yes.
Niners are easily capable of putting up 30 points against a soft zone, right? If it's not working for the Seahawks, I think you're just going to see the bleeding not be able to be stopped, right? So if I'm going to bet on a side to struggle, I'd rather bet on Geno and the Seahawks to have a tough time against this Niners defense. I mean, Kenneth Walker is such a key for them. If they're able to neutralize the run game, then that quick passing game with Geno is a lot easier to read, and I don't think he'll be able to succeed there. If you are looking at the under, and I'll bring this up again because it's a stat and a trend that I played all year and cashed in for me as a big under better all season long, outdoor divisional unders. So teams that are in division that play in outdoor stadiums, 34-15 to the under this season. That's a 70% win rate. Obviously, Seahawks, Niners, outside in Candlestick, you got your outdoor divisional under. There you have it.
Yeah, well, not Candlestick anymore. Now it's Levi's. But also,
Yeah.
what I just remembered is the weather is going to be awful. I mean, there's that bomb cyclone or whatever that's going on in California right now. They're expecting heavy, heavy rain. So that all points to, one, the under for the entire game, and then also this under for the Seahawks. So that's a good point. You got to always look at the weather reports for these as well. And it is supposed to be ugly in California. One prop bet that I like, Brock Purdy over 1.5 passing touchdowns. It's at minus 106. Purdy's the only quarterback since 1950 to win and have multiple passing touchdowns in each of his first 5 starts. You mean to tell me that Brock Purdy is not going to get at least 2 passing touchdowns? I know it's ugly weather, but minus 106, the fact that he's done it in 5 games in a row and it's a playoff game. I like Brock Purdy over 1.5. What do you think?
Hard to be mad at that. Yeah, the only reason I might not feel great about it is because what if they're playing with a big lead? What if they lean on the run game and it's just C-Mac gets 3 touchdowns himself? What if it's Debo? What if they're doing trickeration plays? I don't know exactly how they're going to score. I certainly see Brock Purdy throwing for 1, Kittle, Ayuk, something tricky, right? Like he's going to get 1, 2. I'm not sure, but how do you disagree with? I mean, he's done it 5 games straight, right? When he's shown that he's not scared of the big moment. So I lean that way too. I'm not mad at that bet.
Yeah, Geno Smith, his under 1.5 is at minus 224. So it seems like the books aren't expecting a lot from Geno and the offense for the Seahawks. Let's go ahead and move on. Chargers versus Jags. Chargers are the favorite, minus 125. Jaguars plus 105. This spread was a pick'em, and now it's minus 1.5 to the Chargers, over under 47.5. Chargers 10-7 straight up, 11-5-1 against the spread. They've been pretty good against the spread this season, and they trend towards the under, 9-7-1. Jags 9-8 straight up, 8-9 against the spread, and their under is also 9-1. So under kind of the heavy trend with this one. The Jags won 30-10 at the Chargers in week 3. They were 6.5-point underdogs. This one's interesting because it's the first time that we're going to get Herbert versus Trevor Lawrence in a playoff game, both top 10 picks making their playoff debuts. They're also both the youngest quarterbacks to start a playoff game in their team's history. They both have 25 passing touchdowns this season. Doug Peterson, I'm going to give him the edge on this one. I think he's the better coach. He's much better than Staley is, and he's a little bit more consistent. He's 4-2 in playoff in his career, including the Super Bowl with the Eagles in 2017. What do you think?
I think that's a great point you bring up in terms of Peterson. Like, if there's a coaching edge, Staley, I think, goes for it more than any coach on 4th down. So maybe those risks pay off or don't pay off in the playoffs. Maybe feels like Peterson is the more stable playoff experience head coach. So I like that point you bring up. And I've been really going back and forth on this game in my head.
I know.
The line has 2. You mentioned it was pick'em. Before it was pick'em, it actually opened Chargers minus 2.5. Then went down to a pick'em, then to minus 1, minus 2. It's just tickering in between this Chargers by less than a field goal sort of favor. And I'm leaning their way, but I'm trying not to be suffer from recency bias. I mean, that Jaguars win over the Titans was not inspiring. The defense won the game, right? Josh Dobbs and the Titans almost beat the Jaguars. And Trevor Lawrence, who I was expecting to have a big game, he looked a little
Yeah.
rattled. I mean, whether it was
Yeah.
adrenaline or like he was just sailing throws over guys' heads that are easy layups, So it was a little surprising. And then the Chargers were pretty bad on paper for the beginning of the season. They ranked really poorly in a lot of defensive stat categories, but very quietly since their bye week in week 8, they've been the second ranked pass DVOA defense, which is very surprising. They were very, very vulnerable in the secondary all year. Guess who else is back, Katie? Joey Bosa. So Khalil Mack and Bosa get to finally, play in tandem on those edges. And it's tough in terms of the game angles. It's a great passing offense in the Chargers versus a bad pass defense in the Jaguars. And I can't shake that out of my head. If it ends up being a shootout, I want Herbert over Lawrence. So, but then the Chargers have struggled against the run at times. And when the Jaguars are playing well, they do this really great gap motion blocking scheme that gets ETN wide open rushes. So I'm just giving you a bunch of contrasting angles. I guess if you put a gun to my head, I like Chargers right now, but I'm going to watch the line till game time and decide based on the market, maybe more than anything. But I like Herbert over Lawrence in a duel of their first matchup here.
Yeah, I feel like when this line was pick'em, it made the most sense because when it comes to quarterbacks, I'm going to give the edge to Herbert, just like you said. We all watched Lawrence last week. He did. He looked scared. He looked a little skittish. He wasn't making as decisive of decisions as we've seen him made in the last half of the season. And so I wonder how he's going to be in a big playoff game like this. Coaching wise, you got to give it to Peterson. I think Peterson is a better coach than Staley is. Staley has those kind of like whoopsie moments almost once a game. So that's a little bit scary when you're thinking about taking the Chargers. But so interesting when you mention waiting on this spread, it's already moved. It's now LA -2. So it opened as a pick 'em. This morning it was 1.5 and now it's 2. So if you like the Chargers, I wonder if this gets all the way up to a field goal. It seems like a lot of the money right now is coming in on the Chargers. So if you do like the Chargers, it might be the time to grab them now because I can see this ticking up even more. They're -130 on the money line now. Yeah, I mean, I would say maybe the under 47.5. You look at these offenses, a lot of people are thinking, hey, this is going to be a shootout. We're going to see Herbert do all of these things. Under is the trend with both of these teams. And you mentioned Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, and Kenneth Murray all left week 18 with injuries. Bosa's got a little growing, but they're all expected to play, but we don't know what exactly we're going to get out of him. So yeah, maybe this is a wait and see. However, if you like the Chargers, I could see this moving all the way up to a field goal. So you might want to grab it now.
And with the spread tickering and teetering between 1 but not quite 3, not quite to the field goal, that scares me. So if I'm going to pick a side, I'm picking the money line. I feel like someone's going to win by 1 in this game, and I'd rather not have to lay any points, whatever it is, right? If I want Chargers, I'm going to take a money line, even if it's -130, that's okay. And if you like Jaguars, I mean, forget the points. It's less than a field goal. Just take them to win. This should be a close one.
This might be a good one. I mean, it's hard because it's so close to 0. I was going to say it could be a good one for a teaser, but with only 2 points, that's a little bit tricky. Okay, let's move on.
If you want to tease, I would tease. Sorry, I was going to say if you want to tease it, I would tease Jaguars up. I think it could be a 1-score game.
Yeah, that's actually smart. And then maybe with the total, bring it up more because I think 47.5 is actually pretty high. But if you get it over that, then maybe taking that under. Okay, anyways. Dolphins versus Bills. Dolphins -7, Bills -2. Bills -500 on the money line. This spread 9.5, over under 46. They were laying 11. Buffalo was laying 11 earlier. Now that's moved to 9.5. Tua has not been cleared for football activities. I think it's safe to say that he's probably not going to play. The home team won both of the meetings this season. Each of those were decided by 3 points or fewer. When you look at Miami in the playoffs, they've lost 4 straight playoff games, each by 17 plus points. They're actually the first team in NFL history to lose 4 straight playoff games by that large of a margin. The Dolphins have lost the past 9 outdoor games below 40 degrees. 7 of 9 losses during that streak came by 16 points or more. It's pointing like Buffalo is going to win this game. And I will say, Buffalo's got some kind of divine intervention happening. You can't get 2 punt returns, 4 touchdowns in the same game by the same guy and not think that you've got some kind of heavenly assistance on your side, whether you're religious or not. It seems like you don't want to bet against the Bills right now. What do you think?
Yeah, right. Well said. Heavenly assistance. I love that. Yeah, I'm just you right away. You bring up the temperature and their struggles in cold weather. I'm reminded of Mike McDaniel's "Wish it were colder" T-shirt, and they actually played okay in that game, but he doesn't wish it
He
was
did.
colder because
He
it
did.
was
Yeah.
plenty cold and they lost the game. Um, and it's going to be below freezing temperatures again in Buffalo with a quarterback situation for the Dolphins that we're not sure of. Right, like you said, Tua still hasn't been cleared for football activities. That means he hasn't been practicing. And if they trot him out there on the field half concussed, the Dolphins go to jail. I mean, I don't care if it's the
Yeah.
playoffs. Immediate jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect anything. Teddy Bridgewater may get the start. McDaniel was sort of insinuating that when Skylar Thompson took a big hit in the last week against the Jets, that Bridgewater may have been able in that scenario to come in and play despite a couple nagging injuries that he's got, one with his finger. And so I think that he was close to being ready. That gives me the sign that they'll probably go with him if we can make a guess. So Bridgewater, I wonder if that impacts the spread is the reason I bring that up. Right now I've seen it go as low as -9, but I don't think it's going to get to 8.5. I think it stays, again, similar to the 49ers line, 9.5, not quite 10, but in that range. Again, sharp action might come in on the Dolphins. It's just a lot of points in a playoff matchup, but again, I might look to tease the Bills down and get a better line so I don't have to lay such a big spread. I don't see them losing this game, and I would have to come up with a beautiful mind, chalkboard angles to tell you how the Dolphins are going to pull it off with Teddy Bridgewater in the cold. I just don't see it.
I don't see it either. And Teddy Bridgewater also hasn't been able to stay healthy. Every time that he comes in, he ends up coming right back out. So look, health is wealth, especially when it comes to quarterbacks and especially when it comes to the playoffs. And you got to give the edge to the Bills here. Plus, I've got the divine intervention happening. Josh Allen, worth noting, 8-2 in his career versus the Dolphins. He's also 5-0 at home versus Miami. He's actually the only player in NFL history with 250 plus pass yards per game and 50 plus rush yards per game in his career versus a single team. That's a minimum of 5 games. They don't have props yet available for this game, player props at least on Caesars, but I would look at Josh Allen. I would look at his rush yards, and I would look at his passing touchdowns as well. He has multiple passing touchdowns in all 10 of his games in his career versus the Dolphins. It's tied for the second most consecutive games with multiple TDs by a quarterback versus a single team. Last one, Dan Marino versus the Jets. So you got to look at Josh Allen in this. You got to look at his rush yards. And I do think, look at the Dolphins too. They've got some, Raheem Mostert, I think, is injured, but he's expected to play. But if they're going to win this game, regardless of who is at, or at least keep this close, I don't think they win this game, then they're going to have to run the ball more. So I might look at the running backs for Miami in this game to go over on some of their prop bets. Anything that you think people should keep an eye on when it comes to prop bets for this matchup?
I think it's good to bring up prop bets in general for this matchup and for the 49ers Seahawks. I'm less inclined to sprint to the window to lay -9.5 than I am to pick up a couple players that I feel like have a good positive game script and identify, where the offense comes from. And if I do think these teams can win, if not cover, it'll be behind the back of maybe a Christian McCaffrey getting it down on the ground, or a George Kittle scoring, or, a Keenan Allen going off in receptions, or a Josh Allen, using the legs, total yards, what have you. So I'll be king on the, if I do like a favorite, I'm going to try to figure out which player on offense is going to carry them that win, and look to bet props instead of big spreads.
Yeah, and there's some props available. There's not a ton available right now, but keep an eye on Caesar Sportsbook for those as they come out. Okay, let's move on to the G-Men. Your G-Men versus the Vikings. The spread is 3, which is interesting because the Vikings have a far better record than the Giants do. However, oddsmakers only giving them basically just the standard home field advantage. 48.5 is the total. The Vikings are the first team with 12-plus wins and negative point differential in NFL history. Giants, they're great against the spread, 13-4 ATS this season. Vikings, however, 11-0 in single-score games. That is the most one-score wins in an NFL season in the history. Vikings won 27-24. And you had Greg Joseph with that 61-yard field goal as time expired to win that game. I know we think that the Vikings are frauds, and you are a Giants fan, and I'm a Giants believer. I kind of think the Giants can win this one outright. What do you think?
They can win this game, Katie. This is a soft line. 3 -3. What is that? That's nothing. That's a pick 'em on a neutral field. Like, And
Yes.
it just goes to
Yes.
show, look at their record. You said they finished 13-3, but had a negative point differential. I mean, that's astonishing. How do you win 13
Yeah.
out of 16 games and you got scored on more than you scored? I mean, that's unbelievable. That's like when you lose in your fantasy championship. You're like, this guy won with 1,500 points. I scored 2,000. I came in eighth. So, like, I, I just don't. We've been calling for their regression week in and week out, and we've cashed against them a number of times, whether it's the spread they didn't cover or what have you. Primetime Kirk in the 4 p.m. window, it's not even 1 p.m. Kirk. It's 4 p.m. Sunday playoff Kirk. The Giants, and I don't want to be a biased fan or suffer from recency bias, but when we played them last and lost by 3, we had that game won. We dropped the game-winning interception. So I'm a Giants fan. There's some bias involved here, but the game-winning interception was dropped. Rich James dropped a first down that probably would have sealed the game up too. And then Greg Joseph hits a 61-yarder to beat us. If that's how you're going to beat the Giants, barely get by us, and then at home you're laying 3, just the line tells me that the books aren't even that confident in the Vikings. But here's the thing. New York's a very popular and public betting market. I ain't the only gung-ho Giants fan that's going to go run to the window and bet my Giants. There's going to be money on the Giants. So that makes me worried, if anything, right? It's not like, ooh, I got the sneaky underdog. No, they're going to be a popular underdog. So we'll see what the market does. But right now, I'll take Giants +3. Grain of salt, biased fan giving you this pick. And I think they can beat the frauds here. We called for it last week. I'm not changing my prediction. Vikings are out in the first round. Go Big Blue.
Go Big Blue. I love this. I think they could win outright. I might sprinkle a little bit on the money line in this game. And look, I think everything that you just said makes sense. And these Vikings, yes, they keep winning. And I know that their record speaks for itself, but this negative point differential is hanging over their head. Also, their defense, bottom 5 in the NFL in points per game, yards per game, and yards per play allowed this season. It's the worst among the 2022 playoff teams in each category. Daniel Jones has been hot. Dable has been, drumming up some good plays. Saquon's going to go off. I would not be surprised, and I am going to sprinkle a little bit on this G-Men money line. And like you said, it is going to be a popular dog, but it's going to be a fight, and it's going to be in Minnesota, which will be interesting. But I just don't trust these Vikings at all. So give me the G-Men on the money line. Any prop bets you think it's your team that we should be looking at? I was kind of thinking about Dexter Lawrence when they have his tackles and assists. He's actually has 28 quarterback hits this season, the most by any player that's 340 pounds or more. And he also has the most quarterback hits this season by a player of that weight as well. Sexy Dexy, if you will. I might look into his tackles and assists. But anyone that we should keep an eye on for prop bets?
Wow. I love that. First of all, I didn't know that was his name. Love that. I love defensive props.
Sexy Dexy, come on.
That's awesome. You had a weight based stat, like that was fantastic.
Well,
yeah,
I do it all.
Truly. We're waiting for more player prop markets to come out, so we still have to kind of watch and see. And of course, Saquon is everyone's got their eye on Saquon. His line's going to be crazy high, but a lot of the time that hasn't mattered. Like odds makers can't set it high enough, right? He just smashes it anyway. I might look at like Daniel Jones completions. I could see him doing a lot of quick hitter stuff, spread offense type of stuff. I'll get back to you on that. But as of now, I'm thinking about Jones completions. I'm thinking about Saquon anytime touchdown. And I agree with you. The Vikings defense is soft. So we're going to have to stop Justin Jefferson. It could end up being a weird a shootout, which Giants don't love to get into. And it's not really their style of game. So we're going to have to slow the pace down and play, measured Giants football. So to that point, maybe, completions and maybe a Saquon touchdown thus far on my radar.
All right, love it. Moving on to the Ravens and the Bengals. Ravens are the dogs here, +270 on the money line. Bengals -345. Spread a touchdown over under 42. The teams split the season series 1-1. The home team won each of those. In week 5, the Ravens won 19-17. Justin Tucker, of course, with that 43-yard field goal to win that one. And then in week 18, the Bengals won 27-16. Lamar Jackson was do not practice. This one is interesting to me because if you look at this line, it's indicating that Lamar Jackson is going to play because in the week 18 matchup, they were 11.5-point underdogs with Tyler Huntley under center. Now this is a 6.5 line, a 7 line, depending on where you get it. Everything's pointing that Lamar Jackson is going to play this game. Does that sway you at all? I mean, he hasn't played since week 13.
I'm going to call and I'm going to say that he doesn't play. And that they're playing a cloak and dagger game, the same way that Bill Belichick might do it, right? Like, why would he play? The Ravens offense is completely stuck in the mud with or without him. Obviously with him, it's much better. And now he has his case of why he should get paid. The entire city of Baltimore is screaming at the ownership. What are we waiting for? We have nothing without him, right? His job is done then. He did what he had. He didn't have a great season. He had some good moments. Then he got hurt. And then the Ravens weren't going to go anywhere anyway. This team is not dynamic. It does not have the weapons, like I said, even with Lamar on offense. And you can't get into dogfights with every team and expect to win 19 to 17 games on the back of 4 Justin Tucker field goals, right? It's just not going to happen every week. So I don't know why he would risk his PCL sprain that he hasn't even practiced, right? Like you said.
Yeah,
so
do not
why would
practice
he go out
last
there?
week. Yeah.
Why would he go out there and risk his knee just for what? For a team that's not going to make a run anyway? I think it's BS. So I'm going to say Huntley plays, and they're playing this cloak and dagger game, and maybe the spread shoots up. Maybe it stays here because they just played each other. Again, it's the third matchup. But like we said, teams that see each other for the third time, or actually, we don't even have to worry about that because the Bengals lost in their first matchups. Now, they can split the series and take the win here. How do you not like the Bengals in this matchup? I don't know if I love, again, laying a touchdown in the playoffs, but Joe Burrow is not going out to these Ravens. No chance. He runs the AFC North now, and they're taking this
100%. Yeah, Joe Burrow is a threat in the AFC, both to the Bills and to the Chiefs as well. So of course I'm going to take them in this game. And honestly, I think if this is a little trickery, if this is we're pretending like he's going to play and then he's not going to play, grab the line now because that's going to, like I said, in Week 18 they were 11.5-point dogs. Even at 7, it seems like that's where you want to take it. I kind of lean under on this game, or maybe just the Baltimore team total under. Cincinnati has a third best scoring offense since Week 9, and that's been on their 8-game winning streak. Baltimore second best scoring defense since Week 9, so they can kind of handle Cincy a little bit, maybe keep them, their defense has been pretty stout, keep them lower scoring. So I'd lean under, and certainly at the Baltimore team total under. Let me see what that is right now.
I totally agree with you.
Caesar Sportsbook. Yep.
I'm with you on that as well. Again, outdoor divisional under. These made us money at a 70% rate all year. You have another one. AFC North. Think about these matchups. The Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers. I mean, they're just dogfights, a war in the trenches. And I'm on the under as well. I got under 42.5. 42 is a very key number in terms of game total. So get 42 or above that if you still can. But I totally agree with you. I'm going to play the under here, thinking it'll be another dogfight between these two familiar foes.
Yeah, Baltimore team total 16.5, under -105, over -115. I still might sprinkle a little bit, on that under. I don't know that they get more than 2 touchdowns in this game if it's Justin Tucker that's starting, or like you said, even Lamar Jackson, because let's say Lamar Jackson does play. We can't expect him to be wheeling and dealing like he did before injury. Like you said, do not practice last week. So I don't know how many points Baltimore is going to score here, but I do think that their defense can tame Cincinnati at least a little bit. All right, moving on. Cowboys versus Bucks, the Monday night game. This is the closest game of them all. Cowboys money line -145, Bucks +122, spread 2.5. Favoring the boys, over under 45.5. Cowboys 12-5 straight up, 10-7 against the spread. They lean on the over, 9-8 this season. Bucks 8-9 straight up, 4-12-1 against the spread. Not great. And they're really good at the unders, 11-6. It's 11 straight playoff appearances without conference championship trip for the Cowboys. We know we like to talk about the Cowboys a lot. Okay, so 11 straight playoff appearances, no conference championship, 8-game road playoff losing streak. It's tied for the second longest losing streak in playoff history behind the Lions. 7 postseason one and done since 1996. They are 4-5 as playoff favorites since 1996, and it hasn't helped them at all. What do you think?
Look how much joy we both have talking about their failures. I just feel like we're both in the Cowboys hater club. I know I am. They're in my division, but it's just no, a lot of people. Look, I'm a Yankee fan, so it goes the same way against me, right? We like to hate on the Cowboys. People like to hate on the Yankees. I get it both ways, right? So, oh man, we've been waiting to talk about the cow frauds in the playoffs all year. There's this great meme that's the Cowboys season cycle, and it's always you are here, disappointing start, pick it up, we them boys choke in the playoffs, and I always keep on, you are here, you are right here. To all the people that were saying we them boys, the Bucks as home dogs is very appealing. Brady as a home underdog, how do you not like that sentence? I will say he's playing at night here. he's been really bad against the spread at night. Last 15 games, I
Hmm.
believe he's 2-12-1 against the spread. Thomas Brady, that poor record, ATS. You don't see stuff like that normally, but I'm very compelled to tease the Bucks up to +8.5 as home underdogs.
Ooh,
+2.5 when you
yep.
see that. That's usually a really good teaser line because you get through 8 to get to 8.5, and that's a full score, right? Even for 2-point conversion, and that's usually a pretty good line to have in your pocket. I don't see the Cowboys blowing this game out. I think it'll be close. Dak last week, I mean, again, we don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but Dak had against the Commanders, he threw two of the same exact throws on back-to-back plays. The first one was a pick six that got dropped. The cornerback is like hand in his head, opposite way around, head in his hands, like, I can't believe I just dropped a pick six. The next play, it happened. So Dak
Yeah.
does not look like he's in playoff form, and I don't trust these Cowboys one bit. They had a great regular season record. Just to draw the Tom Brady and the Bucks for a road playoff game. Good luck to you. I lean Bucks, but I'll probably tease it or do something else. The spread is weird, so I'm going to keep watching the line.
Yeah, you talked about how the Giants are going to be a public dog leading this week, and I think that the Bucks are going to be maybe the biggest public dog on this. And assuming, look, Dallas played the most uninspired football I think we've seen from them in their Week 18 matchup. I mean, that was just embarrassing. What was it, 26-6, with the third string quarterback from the Washington Commanders? Assuming Dallas's offense doesn't lay an egg like it did in Week 1, it'll be interesting to see how the Cowboys pass rush impacts Tom Brady. Tom Brady has the lowest pressure rate in the league, and Dallas's pass rush has the highest pressure rate this year. TB12 still ranked the fourth worst passer rating when pressured in 2022. All that said, let me make a case for Tom Brady here, okay? Tom Brady 7-0 in his career versus the Cowboys 7-3 as a playoff underdog. This will be Tom Brady's first career playoff game as a home underdog. Tom Brady 2-6 against the spread in his last 18 primetime games. You already alluded to that. Not so great at night, but he's the GOAT, okay? He has the most playoff wins at 35. He has the most conference championship appearances at 14. He's got the most Super Bowl trips at 10 and championship 7 of any player in NFL history. Dak Prescott is tied for the lead in NFL interceptions this year. I might look at a Dak Prescott cookie, although I think that those odds are going to be quite juiced.
You know they will be, but I like it. I could see a linebacker or somebody jumping a route, somebody getting a hand up and deflecting a pass. Like, I'm just seeing a Buccaneers defensive player make a big play at some point in this game. Levante David or Devin White or someone in the Sean Murphy Bunting, just someone step up, and one of those names that we remember, on their playoff and their Super Bowl run not so long ago, make a big play. And that was really the identity and the heart and soul of the team that got them there, was the defense, right? It was that hard-nosed defense that created a lot of turnovers. So I'll look for them to be the calling card of the Buccaneers more so than Brady and the offense to wow you, right? I think it could be a stingy game. Maybe I'll look towards the under. I don't know. But you brought up a lot of really good points about pressure rate. You see it when Brady is uncomfortable, when he's yelling at his offensive line and Microsoft Surface tablets are getting shattered on the sideline, right? That's when it's ugly. And that's when the Buccaneers are like, Tom Brady is the quarterback of this team. What's wrong with them? So they got to protect him, or he's got to be able to find comfortable, quick hitter stuff before Micah Parsons and the pressure gets there. So we'll see how that pans out, but that is a little worrisome. Weird game, weird wild card round. I'm really excited for these.
Weird wild card round. I will say it'll be interesting to see if playoff Lenny, if Leonard Fournette comes out, because one thing about this Bucs offense is they have not been able to get their run game going at all. But if you look to their Week 1 matchup, Dallas let Leonard Fournette rush for 127 yards, 55 more than he had in any other game this season. So I'll be interested to see playoff Lenny's props, and if his nickname does come to another prophecy this year. But go Bucks, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's a good prediction too. I like where your head's at there. Maybe I'll look that way too. The Cowboys, you feel like they get all the praise on their defense. Maybe when, like, I don't know this for certain, but it feels like, at least the games I've watched, that they're leading in, and teams have to drop back and pass to catch up, right? Because Dak or Zeke or Pollard, someone broke off a huge play, they're up a touchdown or two. Now you got to drop back and pass a lot, and you're just getting sacked by everyone, and the pressure's too much, and someone gets an interception, Trayvon Diggs or something. But I've always felt like their defense the last 2 years has been overrated. It's again, prisoner of the moment. They have a huge game where they have 9 sacks and 8 analysts jump on, every show, and they're like, oh, blah, 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 this is the greatest defense I've ever seen. And they give up 40 the next week. So, they're always liable to get burnt. If they're not creating the big sacks and big turnovers and big plays, then they end up losing games. And I don't know if they create those here against Brady, who's going to be probably on his best behavior, right, managing. So, Yeah, interesting look. If they can get Lenny going, then they won't have to drop back and pass so much, and he could just eat them up on the ground where they might be a little softer.
Yeah. All right. So we're going to get into this more on Friday, on Friday's show, given some actual picks, but good leans here, good information, things to keep your eye on for this super wild card weekend coming up. With Caesars Sportsbook and Casino, every bet earns with Caesars Rewards. That means whether you win or lose, you're always earning towards perks like free stays at iconic Caesars properties, game tickets, dining, and more. And if you haven't started yet, here's a reminder. Your first bet is on Caesars, up to $1,250. Download the app with promo code OMAHAFULL and place your first bet. If you win, congrats. If you don't, you'll get it back as a free bet. All right, Danny, we have our first UFC event of 2023, Strickland versus Imavov. Who do you like for this one, and what UFC bets are you locking in this weekend? You are a UFC insider, so give us the inside information and some bets to lock in.
Yeah, I'm so happy that it's back. Fight fans have been starving. The UFC's been off for about a month, so this one is an interesting card, sort of under the radar, but plenty of good fights to look forward to. Let's just jump ahead to the main event. You asked me, Nasruddin Imavov versus Sean Strickland. It's kind of a weird matchup, but I lean Imavov. He's minus 110 right now. These guys are at a pick'em. And Strickland was just in a fight a month ago against Jared Cannonier. It ended kind of controversially. It was a pretty boring 5-round fight where both guys just kind of jabbed each other for 5 rounds. And at the end of it, we're all wondering, how are the judges seeing who jabbed more? It was like a boring, uneventful fight that Strickland felt he won and the other 2 judges didn't feel. So it was a split decision win. He's coming back really quickly. He was just posting about like crashing his dirt bike in the woods like a couple days ago. So I wonder how ready is he for this fight? I know he's like always in shape and stays ready and is always a phone call away for the UFC, but he's coming in on short notice against the guy who's been in training camp preparing for Kelvin Gastelum. So, which I actually thought was maybe a harder fight for Imavov. So I kind of like Imavov here, having more prep time. It's a 5-round fight, which he hasn't been in yet, but I think he'll be ready. I think it's also at 205 pounds. They normally fight at 185. So he's bigger. I think he has advantage being the bigger guy. And there's just more paths to victory for him. He has more weapons in the arsenal than Strickland, who's just jabbing, throwing 1-2s, and then complaining about not getting the decision, but not doing enough to win it. So for those reasons, give me Nasruddin Imavov. I like him as the favorite. I can give you a few others too if you want an underdog or a couple
this
faves.
favorite, the line. Sorry, real quick though, the line is only minus 110 to take him on the money line. Normally, I feel like in UFC these favorites are just like crazy juiced.
Yeah, this is a close main event. This is a good one. You're right. A lot of the time you'll see a big main event and minus 350, minus 500, right, for a fighter that everyone feels like they're about to put on a show. But this one is, like I said, there's a lot of question marks about it, right? How ready is Strickland? Imavov's never been in a 5-rounder. How does he match up against Strickland instead of Gastelum, who he's preparing for? So I think because of those questions, we're seeing an even price here. And I couldn't fault you for being on Strickland. I just don't think he has as many paths to victory. And that's the reason I'm going to take a minus 110 price. That's very good on Nasruddin Imavov, who, trains with guys like Cyril Gane, and he's very just well-rounded, thoughtful martial artist. I like him in this matchup.
Anyone else on the card you're looking at?
Yeah, let me give you my underdog of the night, and that's my girl, Raquel Pennington, plus 100. I really like her in this matchup. She's fighting a fighter named Ketlin Vieira. Vieira's last 2 fights, she squeaked by with wins on. Like, I didn't feel she won her last fight against Holly Holm. I think she got a gift from the judges. And she beat, not impressively, like a 45-year-old Misha Tate who returned to the sport. I'm not overly impressed with Vieira. She's kind of inactive. She doesn't. Wow. She didn't do. I know these fighters stay around forever. It's like unbelievable.
Like the Tom Brady of UFC women. Yeah.
And it's a fight. Like it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But I think that Vieira, to that point, she just doesn't do enough in her fight. She's not active enough. She doesn't go and score points. And Pennington certainly does. Pennington is a veteran in the game. She knows how to win on the scorecards. So many times we see her win unanimous decision because it's obvious. She scored more than her opponent. I think that's what she's going to do here. So I think she could close as the favorite. Get her at plus 100 now while she's still a dog. I like Raquel Pennington a lot.
All right. Anything else you're looking at?
Yeah, and then I always like to figure out 2 solid favorites. Like you said, some of these matchups, sometimes the guys are really juiced, but I don't turn away free money either. And I like to use them as parlay pieces, maybe a 2-leg parlay you feel real secure about. Or if you want to have some fun, make a long shot, sprinkle a bunch of guys in there. 2 fighters that I really feel like are going to pick up the win are Javid Basharat and Alan Nascimento. You can use them both as parlay pieces, but they're both over minus 300 favorites. They're both fighting guys that are debuting from the show, the UFC Contender Series. I very often fade guys that are coming in from contender series. People got to know them. The public might be familiar with them. They might have had a highlight win against a lower caliber opponent. They come in and get a good test. These guys are facing Basharat and Nascimento. Those are two good fighters fighting guys that are making their debuts. They're biting off more than they can chew here. So I'm going to take the favorites in those matchups as very kind of secure parlay pieces I feel should win their matchups. No problem.
All right, I love that, people. You should follow these picks because Danny cleaned up in his last fight. What did you go? Did you sweep the board? Or you
I had like a 10
loss?
unit. I had like a 10-unit card. Yeah, closed the year to finish over 60 units in UFC, and that was just the cherry on top. The last card of the year. So very happy about that.
All right, so I will be tailing those picks. Moving on to the NBA slate, let's give you some Mox Locks, our two best bets for NBA or college. I think you've got some college picks for us. I'll start things off here. I'm taking the Hawks plus 2.5 versus the Bucks tonight. That's at minus 110. I know it seems crazy considering the Hawks have been wildly inconsistent this year, not to mention all the off-court drama between Trae Young and head coach Nate McMillan. However, they play well at home. They're currently 3-1 as home underdogs. They also tend to play up to bigger competition. In fact, they won the last two matchups against Giannis and co, including a 20-point victory just in November. The Bucks are in the middle of a 4-game road trip, and they will fly to Miami tonight right after the game to face the Heat on a back-to-back. The Bucks have struggled on the road this season, going 7-11-1 against the spread away from home. A majority of those against the spread losses have actually been since November, and that's the last time that they saw the Hawks. I like the Hawks to keep this one close. Give me Atlanta plus 2.5. What's your first lock for basketball tonight?
So I'm going to go to the college hoops, and I'll give you some action over there. I'm actually going to take a favorite that feels like I'm fading the public on a favorite, and you don't get that often, but I'm always feeling confident when that's the case. I'm going to take Duke -8, and that's a big spread for a team that has been letting people down and has not been reliable. Duke -8, when I saw the line, I was like, 8 points? That's crazy. Everyone's on Pitt, Katie. Everyone is waiting for Duke to disappoint them again. Duke is not the same team that they are at home than they are on the road. They're bad on the road. I mean, they've gotten blown out. NC State worked them. I think that's what's in everyone's minds. They barely got by Boston College. They beat them by 1 point. And now they're -8 against the hot Pittsburgh team that beat UVA, that's beaten some good teams. The line makes no sense, and there's reverse movement on it. Duke has become a bigger favorite. They opened 7.5. They moved to 8. Pitt is getting all the money and all the action. So when the public is on an underdog, when they're all waiting for the favorite to disappoint them, the favorite becomes a bigger favorite. That's all the signs I need to see. So it might look ugly, but I'm going to play Duke -8 and fade the public on a public underdog. That always feels good. Give me the Duke Blue Devils.
Blue. That's the combining Blue and Duke. The Duke Blue Devils. And yeah, whenever you see that reverse line movement, it's always good to jump on that side. It doesn't always hit, but more times than not. All right, I'm looking at the Knicks -2.5 in the first half versus the Pacers at MSG tonight. The Knicks won their first meeting 109-106. This is a tight game. The Knicks are the better team here. They have the 9th highest adjusted offensive rating and the 10th lowest defensive rating. The Pacers have struggled on defense this year, currently allowing 115.6 points per game. But one thing that we know about the Knicks is that you only take them in the first half. That's when they play their best ball, especially at home. They get wildly inconsistent in the second half. Only bet the Knicks in the first half. They rank number 6 in first half points per game at MSG currently this season, averaging about 60 points in that first half. Pacers average 56 away from home. That gives us the 2.5. Give me the Knicks at MSG -2.5 in the first half only. What's your second bet?
Man, I barely watched any Knicks basketball this year to avoid the pain and suffering that I've had throughout my entire life.
First half only.
Right, and you're betting on the Knicks, and you still reminded me how disappointing they are. So I think that you're onto the right path there. You don't want to be watching Knicks basketball in the second half. Some of the most epic collapses in human history. So yeah, I side with you there. I'm going to go back to the college side, and I'll give you one more. Again, a favorite that is not the public side. I'm going to go with Texas -6.5. Who are they playing? The TCU Horned Frogs. We're on the hardwood now, but everyone's remembering them from the national championship game in football. TCU all of a sudden is a hugely popular program, right? I mean, people kind of fell in love with their identity, that Cinderella story. But I heard you say on Instagram, I thought that was great. It was like, it's midnight on Cinderella here, right? The luck has run out. You're about to, turn back into a horned frog. That's not the same movie, is it? But in any case, I think that
Yeah, I
again, the
think
public
you were mixing up
Princess and the
oh,
Frog.
what's the one with Princess and the Frog with Cinderella? Both great quality Disney movies though, just so you know.
Both fantastic films. But I think that the public once again will be on TCU. They were all over TCU in the national championship game in football. What happened there? Georgia covered -13 without blinking. So I think
In the
that's
first
going to happen a little. Exactly. It was over before it started. I feel like that's going to carry over to here. People are going to keep betting TCU. Well, they'll get them back on the basketball floor, but the line doesn't make sense. TCU has been playing really well. They just beat Baylor outright. I don't know why they're 6.5-point dogs. So again, with the public on that side and the line not moving, something tells me Texas is going to be able to stifle them. TCU does really good in transition. And if they can't get out and run, their half-court offense is kind of ugly. I think Texas can stop that transition game, and the 6.5 line doesn't make sense. So I'm going to take the favorites. And again, feel like I'm on the sharp side on a favorite. That always feels good, you know?
Always feels good. And the disappointment for TCU continues this week. Hopefully they'll have a bounce back later this year. All right, Danny, thank you so much for joining us. This has been Moxie Bets presented by Caesars Sportsbook. Don't forget to follow us on social at Moxie Bets. We'll see you on Friday. We've got Super Wildcard Weekend picks. We also have Max Meyer who will be joining us. And we're going to get book smart and tell you what's going on behind the scenes at Caesars Sportsbook and how people are betting. See you soon.